right now people are starting to ask, well, is my bank woke? Are they more focused on gay and lesbian and transgender issues than keeping my money safe and investing it to make the most possible return on the investment? Is that what they're doing? That's a question that people are starting to ask. Is the American banking system about to melt down? And is there a financial contagion at loose that could spread not only through the United States, but around the world, even here to Israel? Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg with a Rosenberg Report exclusive for YouTube. This is the topic I want to talk about today is the severe economic crisis facing American banking right now. It's early, but we have some serious disasters that we need to talk about because there's a risk. The risk is we could have a full run on the banks as we did back in 2008, shuttering the American banking system and potentially having global implications. Now, let's start with the epicenter of the crisis. Happens to be in California, the Silicon Valley Bank. A week ago, they had more than $200 billion in assets, and now they're closed. $200 billion of assets last week, the 16th largest bank in the United States, and now not only, well, they're not effectively closed, but they've been taken over by the American government. Why? Why? Because they went broke, because they've had terrible management, and people began to see that and try to get all their money out as rapidly as possible. And as the thing began to go down, the U.S. government stepped in. Now, I want to break that down in a couple pieces, again, because of the risk to the American financial and economic system and to the global economic system. But I want to start with a very interesting quote, a comment made by one of the most successful and wealthiest American entrepreneurs, Bernie Marcus. He's the founder of Home Depot, and he is furious about what's happening at the Silicon Valley Bank, SVB. You may be hearing that. What's Bernie Marcus's point? His point is this is a woke bank, one of the most woke banks in America, so no wonder they are failing or have failed because they are pursuing all the wrong objectives. Now, that caught Neil Cavuto a little off guard the other day when Bernie Marcus was talking to him on Fox Business, because at first, nobody was focusing on the woke policies inside the Silicon Valley Bank. But as we began to look at it more closely, Bernie Marcus was dead on right. Let me just give you a few facts, because what you need to understand right up front is at the moment, it doesn't look like there's a fundamental crisis in American banking. That may be wrong. We may be heading for an implosion of American banking. Let's pray that that's not true, okay? I'm not hoping for it. I'm not predicting an implosion of the American banking and financial and economic system at all. Just the opposite. Looking at what some of the experts that I do trust are saying, their early call on this is that it's not a fundamental problem inside the American banking system the way we saw in 2008, okay, where things went terribly wrong and almost brought the whole system down. But that still could be true. But one of the problems is that the Biden administration is doing two main things wrong, okay? Well, three. First, the Biden administration is spending a freaking boatload of money, way more than any American president administration has ever spent before. Now, the only way, and they're saying they need to do that, of course, to take care of the COVID problems and get the American economy back. But we don't have the money. America doesn't have that money. So what are they doing? The Biden administration is spending way more than it needs to, number one. Number two, it's printing way more money than it needs to. And that is leading to what? Well, first, overspending is always bad because it ends up usually not being spent well, not invested well. But secondly, it's creating inflation. Okay? Inflation just doesn't come out of the air. Inflation, prices go up once people start to realize that each dollar that you have is actually worth less, right? Let's keep it simple. If the United States government only had, 1 million printed dollar bills, then every dollar bill, let's say, would be worth, $1. But if you print $2 million bills, it's backed by the same, reserves, then wouldn't each dollar be worth only 50 cents, really? That's a simplistic way to put it. But the point is, when a government prints more money, way more money than it usually does, there are people that notice it. And as they notice it, these are usually financial experts, they notice that, and then they begin realizing, well, each dollar is worth less, so we need to increase our prices in order to get the same amount of money of a diluted currency. Okay, as that moves from company to company, and down to small businesses, everybody starts raising their prices. Why? Because they're paying close attention to the volume of the money supply and what the U.S. government, the Treasury, is doing in printing all that money. No, they're watching everybody else. They're saying, well, gas prices are rising, coal prices are rising, food prices are rising. I better increase the cost of my falafel or my hot dog or whatever it is, right? And so it becomes, it starts to build on itself, a snowball effect, and that's where we're getting the inflation. Look, say whatever you want about President Trump's antics when he was tweeting, or the way he spoke, and certainly the challenges and the problems, the real problems of January 6th. Say whatever you want about him as a person, as a communicator, but his economic policies were pretty impressive, right? We had very low inflation. We had very strong economic growth. We had very strong employment numbers. And then the Biden team took over. Now, obviously, COVID affected things, but the Trump team seem to have managed that well. The Biden team has not. They're going with the classic progressive liberal, let's spend as much money as we possibly can, except we don't have it, so we have to print it. That's where you're getting all this inflation. Now, with inflation comes the Fed moving to try to counter inflation by starting to drive up interest rates, right? They've done it 6, 7, 8 times, and they are signaling that more interest rate rises are coming. Okay. What happens to a bank? Well, a bank, interest rates affect banking, right? By definition. And people who have their money in the banks, let's say they borrowed a lot of money for a house or for their small business or whatever, as rates go up, they start realizing, I'm not sure I can pay that back. And that creates risks inside the banking system. The long story short, and I'm not trying to give you a detailed, definitive analysis of the Silicon Valley Bank, but it has become clear in recent days that SVB made some terrible, terrible management decisions. By last Thursday, the value of the stock of SVB had dropped 60%. On Friday, it dropped another 60%. And over the weekend, it was taken over by the U.S. government as everybody was trying to get their money out. Okay. Now, the Biden administration is doing something else wrong, right? Spending too much money, printing too much money, creating inflation. The third thing they're doing, and I'm not trying to be a partisan, I'm just trying to give you the facts as they are. And you go test these, but here's the facts. The Biden administration has been pressing U.S. banks not to invest in oil, coal, gas, and other carbon fossil fuel companies, okay? Now, why are they doing that? Because they believe they're fearful of global warming, and they believe that if you get banks to stop investing in carbon producing fossil fuels and those products, then you'll be able to over time deal with global warming. Now, that may sound good to you if you believe in the severity that global warming is going to bring down the whole world. I don't believe that. I do believe it's a problem, but I don't believe it's. I don't even believe it's mostly a man-made problem. But regardless, just think of banking for a second, okay? Banks are being pressured by the Biden administration not to invest in these carbon fuel, fossil fuel companies, okay? Now, What were the biggest, best performing stocks in America in 2022? Well, that would be ExxonMobil. That would be all the big oil, gas, and coal companies. They made more than $200 billion. Their stock prices were off the charts. They were doing great, right? Why? In part because Americans were starting to drive and fly and take trains again, and their businesses were up and running again after COVID. So there was tremendous demand. And these are companies that supply fossil fuels to American and global industry. So it's not surprising that with supply and demand going the way it was, basic economics 101, that the fossil fuel companies were doing great. Now, if your bank, however, is not invested in fossil fuels or are resisting this or divesting of your portfolio in some of the best performing stocks in the world, certainly in the country, you are making bad decisions. Now, I don't know yet, just to be clear, if Silicon Valley Bank had divested itself out of fossil fuel companies. That I don't know. But what I do know, what we're seeing more and more reporting of, is that SVB's risk management leadership was getting all focused on woke policies. Okay? Let me give you some quotes, and I want to read them so I don't get them wrong. Okay? This is a quote from the New York Post, the opening paragraph of an article that ran Monday. A head of risk management at SVB, the Silicon Valley Bank, spent considerable time spearheading multiple woke initiatives, multiple woke LGBTQ plus programs at the bank, including a safe space for coming out of stories of young homosexual kids who decided they were going to, announce to the world that they're homosexual, as the firm raced towards collapse. Now, that headline and that opening paragraph caught my attention, especially in light of what Bernie Marcus had said. Honestly, I'm not, I don't live in California. Obviously, I'm here in Israel. I don't bank at the Silicon Valley Bank, thank God. And so I wasn't familiar with what they're doing. So when I heard Bernie Marcus, somebody I respect, a Jewish American investor, super successful entrepreneur, founder of Home Depot, when he said on Fox Business that SVB had been pursuing woke policies instead of good investment strategies, that I wanted to look into more. So I looked at this New York Post story. Now, this is a quote by a woman named Jay Ersapa. She's one of the heads of the Silicon Valley Bank's risk management team. Okay, she's a senior member of the Silicon Valley Bank risk management team. She's based in the UK. Now, what does the risk management team do? They look at what are the investments we should be making in a bank, and how do we make sure we mitigate risk, that we're not taking crazy, stupid chances with our, with the people who are entrusting their money to us in this bank, who are depositing their money, investing their money in and through our bank, right? That's their job. And that's her job. She was one of the heads, she still is, one of the heads of the risk management team at the Silicon Valley Bank. But listen to her priorities. Quote, here's a quote from this person, a senior head of the risk management team at SVB. Quote, as a queer person of color and a first-generation immigrant from a working class background, there were not many role models for me to see as I was growing up. Okay, that's what she told the New York Post. Now, she said that one of the phrases that has really motivated her in her life is the phrase, you can't be what you can't see. Meaning if you don't see very open homosexuals in society, in culture, in business, in the media, whatever, then maybe you can't think that that's what you want to be, what you want to aspire to. You can't be what you can't see. So she said, I grew up as, again, let me just get the quote right, as a queer person of color, a first generation of immigrant from a working class background. I didn't see many queer people of color. So she decided, as one of the senior people of the risk management team at the Silicon Valley Bank that this would be one of her missions. And the bank, it wasn't like she didn't go rogue. As far as we can tell, she was doing what the bank leadership wanted. It's based in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is one of the most left-wing, progressive, and arguably woke places in America, right in the core of California, which is one of the most left-wing, liberal, progressive, woke states in the United States, maybe the leading woke state, and in the world. So she was right at home. Okay, she was in Silicon Valley. Well, she's in the UK, but part of this banking team that is promoting this. Okay, so what did she do? She spent her time focusing on launching SVB's first month-long gay pride campaign. She spent her time launching the company's first blog, which didn't focus on investment or how to make more money as a bank, but on the lives and the health of LGBTQ plus youth. Now, it's a free world, it's a free country, you can do whatever you want. The question is, if your bank collapses, they had more than $200 billion in assets last week, and now they have nothing because your stock prices drop 60% one day, 60% the next day, and then your government, financial authorities have to take over your bank. Is it possible, I'm asking, that you've been focusing on the wrong thing? Is it possible that the woke bank went broke? And then the question becomes, if that's true, are there other woke banks that are about to go broke? Is your money in them? Is my money in them? That's a major question, okay? And there are, I think, two key elements that I just want to bring to your attention as you think about this and as you pray. Lord, have mercy. If you've got money in a bank, the question is, do you have confidence that you should keep it there? Because anyone who's seen It's a Wonderful Life knows what a run on the bank looks like. That was 1929, right? That was, the key character in that story, and his wife have just gotten married and they're about to go on their honeymoon and they've got cash. But what happens? He's the head of a savings and loan, and he sees a run on the commercial bank, and he runs to his savings and loan that he's in charge of, and there are people demanding to take all their money out. Why? Because they don't trust it. Not that their bank will definitely lose money and they'll never see their life savings again, but they fear that might be the case, and they think it'd be better to just put it under my mattress or in a cookie jar than leave it in the bank or the savings and loan. Right? And we saw the collapse of the savings and loan, or near collapse of the savings and loan industry in the late 1980s in the United States, and we saw the banking industry nearly, go belly up in 2008, and it had huge American and global financial implications, and people are fearing this. So right now people are starting to ask, well, is my bank woke? Are they more focused on gay and lesbian and transgender issues than keeping my money safe and investing it to make the most possible return on the investment? Is that what they're doing? That's a question that people are starting to ask. There's another question. Is it possible that the Biden administration really is pressuring American banks and financial institutions to not lend to, not be involved in, not to invest in the biggest, most successful companies on the American stock exchanges, gas, oil, and coal producers? Well, that is definitely true. Look it up. John Kerry is the climate czar for the Biden administration. And John Kerry, who's on a rampage against global warming, has in 2021 started pressuring American banks and financial institutions to get out of the oil, gas, and coal business. Okay? Look it up. Look it up. What you'll find is that a lot of state legislatures and conservatives and free market people, and people who are like, wait a minute, even if global warming is an issue, is divesting and stopping to invest in or lend to the most successful companies in America or the world, is that the right approach? And hundreds of institutions and legislators and others wrote to John Kerry and said, what are you doing? This is crazy. That was 2021. 2022, the Biden administration starts spending a boatload of money, more than America has, and then printing so much more money. And now, here we are in early 2023, and a bank has collapsed. A bank that bought into at least some of this ideology, certainly the woke side. We're going to look more carefully to see if the Silicon Valley Bank also was against oil, gas, and coal stocks. But this is, I'm using these two examples, the woke going broke and the let's get out of the most successful business and industry at the moment. Doesn't that have implications for a bank? And don't these types of so-called progressive policies have an impact? And I think you need to be watching this very, very carefully. It's not just Silicon Valley Bank. Just in the last few days, other banks are in deep trouble. On Monday, I'm recording this on Tuesday, but on Monday, major bank stocks were dropping 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% in some cases. Now, maybe this will all get settled out, but maybe not. And I think this is a major question that concerns me enormously. Look, let me wrap up with this. I'm watching the world, I'm watching Israel, I'm watching the Middle East, I'm certainly watching the United States from the vantage point of Jerusalem. I'm a dual U.S.-Israeli citizen, okay? That means I have a citizenship in both countries. I was born and raised in the United States, and then I made aliyah. I came and became a citizen here in Israel with my family, and we live here in Jerusalem. But I don't have 50% love for my two countries. Okay, it's not like, well, I got 50% love for America, and I got 50% love for Israel. No, I've got 200% love for both countries. And so I'm concerned about dynamics in both countries as well as around the world. But I'm particularly concerned, and that's why I'm talking about it right now, about what's happening in the United States. I wrote a book in 2012. Some of you have read it. It's called Implosion. Let me repeat that. A book I published in 2012, nonfiction. It was called Implosion. Can America recover from its economic and spiritual challenges in time? And I laid out the case in the 2012 book Implosion of my concerns that America does not show up in end times Bible prophecy. Okay? Israel is central to end times Bible prophecy, and here we are. The country didn't exist as a sovereign country for more than 2,000 years, and then, lo and behold, May 14th, 1948, boom. The Bible question, can a country be born in a day, was answered. Yes, it can be the state of Israel. And yes, Israel has challenges, Israel has problems, but we know in the Bible, in Bible prophecy, that God is raising up Israel in the last days of history, and he's shaking all the nations around the world. America is the world's only superpower at the moment. And so people have asked me, well, what do you mean America isn't in end times Bible prophecy? It's not. You're like, well, it has to be. Maybe it's Babylon. No, Babylon is Iraq. Okay? And well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. No, it's not there. You go read the book, Implosion. I walk through all the possible scenarios that people have raised over the years. America is not mentioned. So people ask me, okay, well, wait a minute. How is that possible? America is the wealthiest, most powerful country on the face of the planet in the history of mankind. How could it not be a major player in the end of days? And the answer, I'll save you a little bit of money, but I still want you to get the book. You can get it from the library, that's fine. The answer is I don't know why, but God doesn't clearly position the United States as a defined player in the end of days. God mentions a lot of countries that are going to play a key role, but not the United States. So the question is, well, what happens? And the answer is we don't know exactly what happens, but there's a real possibility of implosion. I don't want it. I don't like it. It worries me. I'm not predicting it. What I'm saying is no country can murder 63 million babies and not face the judgment of God. And no country can just spend everything it wants and then print more money to spend more and not have any fiscal discipline and not risk a financial implosion. You can't build the world's leading pornography industry and not catch God's notice. These things don't happen in a vacuum. He's watching. And God loves the United States and has used the United States to be a great blessing to the world, a great blessing to Jews, and a great blessing to Israel, and to peace, and to stability and security in the world. But there is coming a day when America either won't exist or, maybe more likely, won't exist in its current form. It won't be the world's superpower. It won't be able to be the world's policeman and keep, a check on evil. There's a point in which Israel will not have America as our strongest, most wonderful ally. We will feel very much alone in this world. We're not there yet. I pray it doesn't happen in our lifetime. But when I see these type of shudders spreading through the American financial economic system, when I see the fact that polls show that more than 40% of Americans are fearful that a civil war could break out because of the tremendous differences between people in the United States, those are warning signs on the dashboard. And I'm noticing them, and I'm sharing them with you, not to be a fearmonger, but to be a watchman on the wall. God said, if you see a threat coming to your country and you don't say anything, that threat may come and metastasize, materialize, and have a devastating effect. But you'll be guilty of not warning people to watch what's happening. Most people are busy. They're not watching every single thing. But I have the opportunity, the honor, to watch these things and share with you the things that concern me. Let's be praying for a revival and a great awakening in America, not implosion. I'm Joel Rosenberg in Jerusalem for the Rosenberg Report with a YouTube exclusive.